Does everybody have to have a purpose? Do you feel like you need a purpose? Could you go through life and get to the end of days, a very old, long life, and then go, don't really know what my purpose was? I'm sure the majority of people do get to that stage and potentially don't ever really know, or they subconsciously knew, but they never really thought about it. This is the Born to be Brilliant podcast, helping you harness the habits and unlock the tools to bring you more meaning, vibrance, and the personal power to help you shine like the diamond you are. A hugely warm welcome to this episode all about purpose, and I'm excited to unpack this with you today because I know our audience you guys are high performers, you're high achievers, you are probably entrepreneurs, visionaries, leaders, and you know what it feels like to do the work, right? You don't get there without hard work. I know we talk a lot about, success does not need to be hard. No, it doesn't, but it does take hard work in the early stages, and then it gets to be easier later on down the line. But I do think we should stop suggesting that it's all just a breeze. But you've been there and you have already paid your dues and reaped the benefits of that. So I know that you will have played with purpose, but do you know what your purpose is? And what even does purpose mean? I have been thinking with and researching scientifically and human behavior aspects of purpose. And in conversations I've even had over the past year, it's really fascinating to discover how many people don't really know what their purpose is. And even when they talk to other people, they're like, not sure they know what their purpose is. And I think one of the problems with that is when you try to force it, when you try to go, oh, yes, okay, so my purpose must be, and you somehow try to connect it to what you do professionally, it's where you can then often come unstuck or feel like you're making it up. Do you know what I mean? Like if you say you run a business in property portfolios, then maybe you think that your purpose is helping people to build wealth. Like that's really kind of intellectualized and completely and utterly tied to your work. I very much doubt that's your actual purpose, but there could be a link there. So when you are an entrepreneurial person, you're a visionary, you're a leader, and they can come in lots of different guises, by the way. That doesn't always mean multi-6 and 7-figure revenue, does it? But when you are that kind of character, that kind of person, you will undoubtedly at some point have created a means to earn money, i.e. a business or a job for yourself as a self-employed person or something like that, a platform from which you can do something that's connected to your purpose. Let me give you an example of this. One of my early businesses was in the entertainment industry, and that in itself had lots of different guises, but let's just wrap it all up into one and call it performing, right? So performing was something that I did and I got paid to do it, and it was a creative expression. Now, I would not have known back then in my early 20s that was in any way linked to my purpose. I didn't even think about it. I didn't go, should I be doing this? Is this what I'm here for? Is this aligned to the purpose that I was put on planet Earth to live out? Like, it doesn't even come to mind. But as they always say, you can join the dots looking back, not forward. And as I look back, I can see exactly how that work, if you can call it work, because I just loved it, but that work that I did, that means of generating revenue and income through something I enjoyed doing, that creative expression, but whatever you want to call it, it was linked to my purpose. And I now can see why. And I could actually tell you in every business I've ever created, because I am entrepreneurial and that is what I do and have always done my entire adult life, I can see how every single one of those businesses and ventures were linked to my purpose. But lots of people can't see that or don't even know what purpose means to even be able to identify it. So can we start there? Can we start by identifying what it means? I don't think that, first of all, purpose is not necessarily linked to your work. I'm just saying that this audience is likely to have linked it to their work because of who you are. But there are plenty of people out there who work for somebody else in an employed role, perhaps in a corporate position, and that's their work. And they do their work because that's what they're there for. And they probably do have a bit of their purpose like coming through in that work. It's inevitable because it's who they are at their core. But the job isn't their purpose. And it may be that it's their means to earn money and to operate and run their life. And it enables them to go and pour more of that person and who they are and that purpose into something outside of their work, their career, their job, their revenue generator. It could be outside of that. It could be something that they do as a hobby. It could be something that they lead or initiate for fun. For pure fun. I mean, that's alien to me. Probably is to a lot of you guys, because we turn every passion into a business, don't we? But lots of people don't. And it could be something that they do. Maybe they do a hobby for a while and then they go, I'm gonna teach classes in this, or, because it's something that just lights their soul and they know that it has a ripple effect and it impacts other people. It could be charity work. It could be community work. It could be volunteering. It could be a hobby. It could be anything. And, for some people, their purpose, I'm thinking of an example character here. You could have a character who their role, they're employed, they have a job working for somebody else, and they are in a very supportive role, right? And in that job that they don't particularly love, but they know they're good at it and they get paid and it pays the bills. So they're like, that's fine for me, I'm happy. They are supportive. And maybe what translates from that is they find that, and in their private life, they're a really blooming good friend. They're a great friend. They're a great, maybe parent, spouse, or whatever human being that's really, really supportive of other human beings. Now, their purpose could be massively tied to supporting others or being that supporter. So perhaps leadership may not be anywhere in their being. It may not be in their purpose whatsoever, but maybe they're the perfect character and their entire purpose is around supporting others. So they naturally attract those who crave that kind of support, and then they get to support those people. Because ultimately, how many billion of us are there on this planet? We're not all supposed to be the same, made up of the same stuff, or have the same purpose. That would be really weird. So I am hoping this is a good explanation or just thoughts on what purpose means and how it could take shape. Now, you guys being high achievers that listen to this podcast, you likely do have your own business or have had or will have, or in some way you are about achievement, which means you are very driven and motivated and you're quite a self-starter. People like us, we often will find that our purpose links to our work naturally, but there's a massive caveat here. We can get stuck when we don't recognize that can change and evolve. So through different seasons of our life, that might shift. And as I mentioned, in my early adulthood, mine came through me and my purpose was showing through business ventures and work that was in performing arts, right? And that's fine. And then the next phase of life was parenthood, and early parenthood, it carries its own different demands. And my purpose was still very prevalent. I didn't know what it was really then. I didn't necessarily have that nailed, but I can look back and see how it still shone through. It shone through in my next business and my next business in different ways. And it shifted again as I entered the next season of life, moving into my 40s, children being older, like all the different changes that go on around that point in life. And I was like, my purpose hasn't changed, but the way in which I can express, the way in which I can be, show up and create impact, because that is part of my purpose, is different. And I've always felt a little bit like I've been one step ahead. So every time I have, and this is my take on it, every time I have felt like something feels tight, it's like, okay, the way in which you're supposed to show up with your purpose now is different. But you can't just drop everything, right? Especially when you create businesses. And you're not necessarily supposed to. So sometimes we do. Sometimes we do. We completely reinvent ourselves, or we pivot, or we evolve, and it's nice and smooth and organic. And sometimes it's a bit of a like, okay, it's the end of this thing and the start of this thing. That happened with my singing career. It was like, okay, microphone, you're going away. Costumes, you're going away. It's time now to do something totally different. And it was very much like, that's the end, like handing in your notice. And this is where this begins. But with lots of other things, there's been a crossover. The business that I built and grew through my 20s and into my 30s, I handed over to another managing director and partner. And then eventually I became a silent partner. I was as a director, but I moved myself out of that, started my next business and my next season and venture. But then we sold that business. But my next one was already going. And it just seems to shift like that for me. Same's happened again. I knew something needed to come in. So I started it and started playing with it and have been feeling my way until it's time to go, okay, I'm ready now to step fully into this stage and season for me. And is that thing done and buried? No, it's got new ownership. It's got a new leader at the helm, and that can go forth because it is great. It's not great for me to be at the helm anymore. So purpose is linked very much to meaning, and I would also say to your strengths. So usually, if you are in alignment with your purpose, things flow with ease. It feels good. You literally feel energized and you feel good about what you're doing, and you feel clear on your vision of why you're doing it, where it's going, and what it's all about. One of the biggest telltale signs that you are off track from purpose and you're not in alignment is that it doesn't feel so good. It feels heavy. It feels more of a drainer than an energizer. And yeah, it feels off. It doesn't mean it was wrong. It was right for a period of time, but those feelings are a sign that it's time for your purpose to come through in a different way. So sometimes people who just get really stuck with this and go, I just don't know what my purpose is. My message to you is to not try to force this or think that you need to be able to label it with a word or a sentence or a phrase. You might not. But if you think about where you feel energized and where you feel like complete natural you, like the expression of you is showing up in total alignment with your values. It feels easy because it's in alignment with your strengths. We all have different strengths. We have to. And again, this is why, how the world goes around, because people who are good at some things aren't as good at other things, and so on and so forth. And we become more skilled in different things. But you're going to find that things come more easily to you. Those are your strengths. In childhood, you had the person who was amazing at gymnastics, and then the person who was phenomenal at maths, and it came easier. You went to the exact same class, but that person, it came easier to them, and that person that really struggled with, that's where the things that come easy to you, your strengths, your values, and the things that energize you are really good indicators to that sense of purpose. The question is, does everybody have to have a purpose? Do you feel like you need a purpose? Could you go through life and get to the end of days, a very old, long life, and then go, don't really know what my purpose was? I'm sure the majority of people do get to that stage and potentially don't ever really know, or they subconsciously knew, but they never really thought about it or gave it any depth of consideration, which is fine, by the way. But when you are like a lot of our listeners and like me, you feel more motivated and you feel like you can make the shifts you need to make more easily when you can see this stuff. And I also feel like purpose can also be like your why. You know how people talk about having a why behind what you do, because that will be the thing that keeps you going. Like, what's it all for? Why do we do this? And you can peel back the why, keep going. Yeah, but why? Yeah, but why? Yeah, but why? Until you get to the crux of why you really do something or why you really want something. And that's good to do. But you'll probably find that it's linked to something that really, really matters to you. And that's pretty nice. Purpose gives us a sense of belonging. It gives us a sense of hope. It's one of our core well-being pillars, by the way, and that's science. But, having a strong sense of purpose is really, really good for our well-being. And as high performers, when we feel attached to that greater purpose, we're more likely to accomplish with ease and have a greater impact, which, if you really strip it back, you'll find that is really what most people are seeking. It starts off under the guise of you're in your 20s and it's about making sure you make enough money to survive and you've got to stand on your own 2 feet. And so, societally, we are quite conditioned to go chasing the money, but that is about survival ultimately. But then what? So then you get that, and the trouble is quite often that just gets stacked, right? Because it just becomes more, because we go, okay, well, now I have this much, but if I have this much, I can do this thing, and I can add in this thing and add in this thing, and increase the lifestyle and increase the outgoings, and that means increasing that like income, so the target gets higher and higher, and quite naturally, it often becomes all about money, and there are so many narratives about that. But those that stop and take stock and look at why, like what's the point of that or what's the purpose behind it, you'll usually find it isn't actually ultimately money. Money's part of it and is required. And you can't make as grand of an impact without money. So actually it's fuel. And think of it as fuel. At the beginning, it's fuel to help you survive and to get you, a steady platform from which you work from. And then it's to make you more comfortable whilst you're on your steady platform. Now you're not going to sink. You've got your platform. Now you feel more comfortable. You can create better. You can show up better. And then it enables you to deliver more and better. So you with money, you can open up more doors, you can reach more people, you can share whatever your thing is in a grander way if you have the funds to do that. So there's no doubt that it is part of it, absolutely, but it becomes the fuel rather than the goal. And that's very easy for people to say when they're sitting on a ton of money. Very easy. But when somebody's at the starting blocks of this and getting going, it's not as simple as going, oh, but it's not about the money. Just make sure you go out there and, make a difference and help people and create an impact. And the money will come like naturally. Yes, it will. And yes, that's an amazing mindset to have. But you will also need a certain level of financial stability and I guess also financial, not just stability. We don't want to just survive, but, financial fuel to be able to go and do that bigger and better. So yeah, purpose is amazing. What I do think though, is there is something. It may take on different guises and you may call it something different, but I believe that there's a golden thread to purpose. There's a spark, there's a something that is consistent, that's always there. And it was there since you were a child, and it may have shown up in different ways. But if you are, beyond your 40s, so you've got enough time you can look back over and you can see those different seasons and phases, you'll be able to spot something where you go, oh my gosh, yeah, as a child this, as a teenager that, in my 20s this, my 30s, yeah. And the thing that's, consistent about all of those things is this thing, and you'll start to see it. If you're not there yet, this is still great for you. Maybe you are in your early 20s and you don't need to go soul searching for this, but just being aware of this, being aware that one day you'll be able to connect the dots backwards. But right now, follow your inner wisdom, because you know more at a subconscious level than your brain. You're intellectualizing. You figure everything out in your head. You need to figure it out with your feeling. You need to figure it out with your body, and you need to figure it out with the inner knowing. Trust that, follow that, and it will all begin to make sense. Do you have to live in your purpose all of the time? No, and I don't know if we even can all of the time. It's great if we can adhere to our values and what matters most to us, yes. But will you always be doing work that is completely and utterly matched to your purpose? Probably not, actually, especially in the early days. And does your purpose have to stay one thing forever? No, it could change, but I think that there will be a commonality all the way through, that golden thread, as I said, that runs all the way through. So purpose will take you from a place where it's about achievement, and then it will become a place that's about alignment. And I think that that's something to take away from this episode today, that when you start to feel out of alignment, you're probably disconnected somewhat from your actual purpose. And it's like that little soul whispering in your ear that's like, that's great and everything. I know people where they would say, yeah, it's still working. Yeah, but it makes millions. But it just feels rubbish. It's like, that's your soul calling, going, hey, that's great, that got you there, and that's brilliant. But it's time now to shift into the next level and the next manifestation of your actual purpose. Because, hey, when you really look at it, at the end of the day, life isn't that long. And there's no point staying stuck in, something you created for yourself because it isn't broken. So why change it? Or, but what about the other people it might affect if I shift? It's like, you have one shot at this life. What if that shift that you make now has a far greater and more wonderful effect on even more people than if you stay in the lane that you're in? So, listen deeply to that purpose. And if this resonates with you and you're intrigued and you feel like this is true for you, but you have no clue where to start when it comes to peeling back the curtain and finding out what that thread is, it's exactly the work I do. And that is exactly what Born to be Brilliant is all about. It's helping you to do exactly that. It does not matter whether you are just trying to get out of the starting blocks or whether you make multi-millions. Nobody is immune to this. There is no hierarchy here. There is no further ahead or not. You could be in the starting blocks and more connected to your purpose than that person who is making multi-millions. So it has got no correlation to money, believe it or not. It hasn't. Those that are making a great deal of financial wealth and money have done a few things right in the right order, and it has at the right time. And that's amazing. That does not mean that person or those people are 100% living in a place of complete and utter fulfillment of the mind, fulfillment in their body, fulfillment of the soul. There's so often a disconnect because the hard work, the grit, the resilience, the absolute pains that you will have inevitably had to walk through in order to get there. And I say inevitably because I categorically believe 100%, unless some billionaire, family member hands it to you on a silver platter, but then honestly, I think you would still go through a hell of a lot of pains in life. You don't have that without this yin yang, right? You don't have that without the pains and the struggle. Otherwise, everyone would go, yeah, it's easy. It's not easy. So no one is immune to feeling lost, to feeling stuck, to feeling like disconnected from their purpose, out of alignment with their values, and going through their days going, I just know I'm out of alignment right now and I want to get it back. And if you do feel that, I absolutely applaud you, because it means that you are 100% on the road to something amazing and a massive breakthrough, because that feeling comes right before big breakthroughs. And you probably know that because you've probably had them before. If you're stuck with this one, or even if you're not stuck, but you just don't want to go through your days intellectualizing and thinking it through, and trying to, chat with ChatGPT to figure it out, because that can only churn out what you put in, and you're not going to know what you need to put in, which is why human connection is one of the biggest assets in this. So reach out to me if you want to explore this, because there are so many different ways that this can be done, solo, in groups, in various guises, and it's all about unlocking your purpose, and optimizing you as the brilliant human that you were put on earth to be.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember, go out there and shine your light bright, because you were born to be brilliant.